Okay, so welcome to today's lunchtime webinar for the draft local plan consultation, which is about building a zero carbon Haringey. So this is the overview of the agenda. We'll try and provide a sort of high level summary so that we can allow time for half an hour of questions at the end of the session. We'll start off with a quick reminder of what the draft local plan is, and then focus for about 10 minutes on the key topics that are included in chapter 22 of the draft plan, which is called Building a Zero Carbon Haringey. And then a quick reminder at the end on the different ways in which you can respond to the consultation. And we do have a Q&A section. The chat is disabled for this meeting because it's a webinar, but if you have any questions that you would like to submit, please send it to the Q&A, or alternatively, once we get to the discussion at the end, you could raise a hand and we'll go to questions from the group. So what is the local plan? The local plan is one of the Haringey Council's most important planning documents. It's used, once it's fully published and adopted, it's used to determine planning applications in Haringey. So some of the things that the local plan does includes it's setting a vision for the next 15 years for the kind of places that we want to live, work and spend time in the borough. It provides a plan for future growth and infrastructure needs and where those should be happening in the borough. And also it includes things like allocating land for housing, jobs, shops and green spaces, and also things like where should tall buildings go in the borough. It also provides requirements and guidelines for ensuring high quality of new development happening in Haringey. So, for example, the topic we're talking about today, so our standards for energy efficiency and carbon emissions for new buildings, and also things like design quality. And the plan also protects heritage sites and the natural environment through providing planning policies about those aspects. Some things that the local plan doesn't do, it doesn't fund or deliver new development. It doesn't cover the management of council services such as street cleaning, housing tenancies, street parking or low traffic neighbourhoods. It doesn't make decisions on the delivery of schools, hospitals or transport projects, and it doesn't set council tax or budgets. So why do we need a new local plan? Well, there's national planning policy requires local authorities in England to review their local plans at least every 5 years, because any planning application that comes into the borough needs to comply with the planning policies set out in that local plan. And of course, the borough is always changing. So the last time that we produced a local plan was back in 2017, and that's still our current adopted local plan. So any planning applications that come into us at Haringey Council's planning department, they need to demonstrate that they meet the standards set out in our adopted local plan. And at the moment, that's a collection of documents that together form the local plan. So those multicolored documents at the top right-hand corner of this slide. A lot has changed since our adopted local plan was published in 2017. So that includes changes to national planning policy and legislation. We've also had a new London plan that sets planning policy requirements at a regional level for all boroughs in London. The Haringey Council has declared a climate emergency since then, and of course we have an ongoing housing crisis and a growing focus on important health and well-being needs, especially in the wake of COVID-19 and the cost of living crisis. The new local plan also presents a great opportunity for us to consolidate our collection of documents into one new local plan to hopefully make it easier for people to find the planning policies and understand them. It also provides a great opportunity for us to deliver exciting opportunities like the London Borough of Culture in 2027. And it's an important tool to helping us address the ongoing challenges like the homelessness crisis in the borough by finding new locations for new housing in the borough. So what will be replaced? This slide is just setting out the wider planning policy framework that any new development or any application seeking permission for planning permission will need to comply with, and where our new local plan will sit in relation to those other policies. So we still have our national planning policy framework. Projects proposals will need to comply with national planning policy framework. We have the London plan, the North London Waste Plan, and new development will also need to comply with any neighbourhood plans that we have as in place as a local authority. So at the moment, we've got one neighbourhood plan in Highgate, in Haringey. And so those documents will still apply for new development, but the ones that will be replaced by the final version of this draft plan that we're consulting on include our strategic policies DPD, the development management DPD, our site allocations DPD, and the Tottenham area action plan. And then, of course, we also have supplementary planning documents and guidance that set out a bit more detail in order to help people understand how they can meet and satisfy those planning policies and how they can be properly implemented. So we're on a journey towards creating a new local plan, and this diagram sets out the key steps that national planning policy requires us to undertake as the planning authority. So we're at step 2 in a 5-step process. And we did the first step engagement back in winter of 2020 and early 2021. And that was a very early stage public engagement on, it was referred to as an issues and options engagement. And that's about going out to everyone in the borough and asking very broad questions to try and find out what the important issues are, what really matters to people in Haringey, and for our team to take into consideration before we start the process of drafting a new local plan. So that consultation took place during COVID, so it was online only. We did receive a great number of responses, so we got it was over 1,200 responses in total, which is quite good going for local plan consultations. But this time around, for the consultation we're currently doing now on the draft local plan, we've got a great opportunity because we no longer are restricted to just online events like today's session. We're also running a lot of in-person events across the borough. We've got over 35 of them published on our website. And when we get to the end of the slideshow, I'll show you where those are on the website. And please do come along and have your say if you're available. And so, yes, we're at step 2 in this journey, draft local plan. So this is the first time that we have shared a draft version of our full set of proposed planning policies. So it's a really important opportunity for everybody to have their say and let us know if you agree or disagree with the draft policies that are set out in this plan. We then are duty bound by national planning policy to collect, record and review every piece of written feedback that we receive through this consultation. And it is an opportunity for us to make changes where needed. Then the next step in the consultation process is amending the plan where needed so that we then produce what's called a proposed submission plan. And we will publish and consult on that plan. It's known as a Regulation 19 consultation. And at the moment, we're aiming for spring, summer of 2026 to do that. At that stage, there'll still be an opportunity for people to provide feedback, but we'll be honing in more on the finer details. So the sorts of modifications and changes that are made after that stage are more around the wording and the detailed wording of policies rather than making very big editing sort of changes to the plan. At that stage, it represents our second draft and the document that will be then submitted for examination in, we hope, summer, autumn 2026. At that stage, then a planning inspector who's an independent third party will assess the draft plan to check that it's robust and it's backed up by evidence, both in terms of the community feedback and how we respond to local needs, but also technical evidence studies that we produce to support and to justify some of the technical standards and targets that are set out in our draft policies. That's particularly relevant for today's session because achieving a zero carbon Haringey is quite a technical endeavour. So we do have specific policy targets and metrics that we're proposing there. And then finally, once we've responded to the inspector's comments, we hopefully will be adopting the new local plan. And at the moment, we're aiming for winter 2026 for that. So quite a quick journey once we get past this consultation. So the structure of the local plan document, it's all one local plan, but it's quite a big document, so it's 860 odd pages in total, more or less. And we've tried to sort of structure it into 3 volumes to help make it easier to navigate. So part 1 covers the broad strategic objectives for the plan. So what's the vision overall for the local plan? What are the key priorities and objectives, and how what are the priorities for placemaking as a whole in the borough? It also includes our spatial strategy, which provides a mapped spatial vision for where growth should happen in the borough, and that's going across every neighbourhood area. So it now includes, whilst our adopted plan focused quite a lot just on Wood Green and Tottenham as they are areas which have more potential for larger scale growth, our new local plan is taking a neighbourhood-led approach. So it includes all neighbourhoods in the borough, and it identifies other opportunities for growth. Although they are small, they're still important in other neighbourhoods in the borough, and we need to sort of be finding every opportunity possible to provide appropriate new homes and other sort of new growth jobs, workspace, things like that. So the finer details of what's proposed for each neighbourhood in Haringey is included in part 2 of the draft local plan in our neighbourhood chapters. And there you can find all of the proposed site allocations in every neighbourhood and the overall placemaking approach that's proposed for each neighbourhood. What are the key priorities there? But today we're going to be focusing on part 3, the borough-wide chapters. These are the planning policies which need to apply for all new development in the borough. And so building a zero carbon Haringey and our sort of energy efficiency and carbon reduction strategies, that's something which will need to apply to all new development, regardless of location in Haringey. So I'm going to be uploading a copy of these slides following on from this session as a PDF on the website, and they will be interactive. So the image on the left-hand side of this slide will have a hyperlink attached to it, so it helps you to jump straight to the relevant section of the plan. Apologies, as I've realised I need to update this, and I will do before I upload it, to say building a zero carbon Haringey, unless you know, the design heritage and culture button does exist on the website, but for today's session I'll make sure that this is updated for the building a zero carbon Haringey session. So chapter 22, this is the main focus of our session today. So back in 2020, during our first steps engagement, people told us, well, we found that there was pretty strong support for putting sustainability at the heart of the draft local plan. And that came through with the feedback we received from people living in all areas of the borough. People want to see higher building standards with zero carbon design principles adopted for all new development in Haringey. Many residents also called for more renewable energy, and people told us that we need to do better at monitoring our carbon savings to make sure that we reach our targets. So we've gone away and listened to that feedback, and what you see in the draft local plan in this chapter is the result of trying to address that very strong direction we got from the community about the importance of making sure our climate change policies are as good as they can be. So what did our evidence say? Well, as I mentioned earlier, achieving a zero carbon Haringey requires some quite technical standards in our planning policies to help us make sure that we actually achieve zero carbon buildings and it's not just sort of lip service. So we commissioned a study called the Delivering Net Zero study that was led by Haringey Council, but we commissioned it in partnership with 17 other London boroughs. And that study identified that zero carbon buildings are essential to helping us deliver the carbon savings that we need for Haringey to meet our zero carbon targets that are set out in our council's climate change action plan. The evidence also identified that current standards are not really reducing carbon emissions as much as we had hoped when the buildings are measured in use. And it identified that we should use new energy efficiency targets to achieve our carbon reduction goals. So that will also help to reduce energy bills for people and make sure that our homes are healthier and mold-free. It effectively sets a higher construction quality for buildings, and so that helps to keep wasted energy down through the use of buildings, and it also results in more comfortable buildings that aren't drafty, cold and moulding. So there are many local authorities in the UK who are now introducing similar energy efficiency targets to help tackle the climate emergency. I just had a look today at another new one, the Greater Cambridge Service, and they're consulting on their draft local plan at the moment, and I note that they've put very similar targets to us into their draft plan. And then, of course, many of our partner boroughs in London who worked with us on the Delivering Net Zero study, they are also putting similar targets into their policy. So we're all sort of aiming for a similar approach at the moment and going through a similar stage of getting our planning policies reviewed, consulted on, and hopefully adopted. So what does the draft local plan propose? So this is just a high-level summary of some of the key topics that are proposed in this chapter of the draft plan. So all new development will be required to achieve a zero carbon balance. So that means minimising embodied carbon, and that's to do with the carbon content of materials, includes also transportation of materials. And we have proposed and included some new targets there that I'll show in a bit more detail in a moment. We also have policies on reducing waste through the intelligent design of buildings so that they take into consideration not being overly wasteful of materials when they're designed. So that means applying circular economy principles. And then on operational carbon, so energy use associated with using buildings. So that's things like heating. Again, we've introduced these new targets that improve energy efficiency in buildings and help to reduce wasted energy and therefore carbon emissions through having to heat spaces when they don't need to be. New energy efficiency targets that we have introduced include policy targets that are based on the recommendations of our Delivering Net Zero study evidence. And essentially, those new targets are a passive design approach that they're very much based on the Passive House Standard, which you may have heard of. The Passive House Standard is an internationally recognised standard in energy efficiency for buildings. It's one of the very few standards out there that when measured in use, one finds that buildings are performing as they were designed to perform. And that also aligns with the advice of the UK Committee on Climate Change and was confirmed by the evidence study that we commissioned together with our partner boroughs. So other key points on what's proposed in this chapter include taking a retrofit approach to encourage better use of existing buildings. And then also we have policies on encouraging renewable energy and making sure that we have low carbon heating supported in our developments. And there's quite a sort of detailed policy that sets out guidance on how to prioritise different options for low carbon heat in Haringey. So we're calling that our Haringey low carbon heat hierarchy. So today is a lunchtime session. We've got to 1:30 and I do want to allow time for questions. So I haven't included much detail on each of the policies, but just a couple of slides and then we'll get to the Q&A session. So this is that strategic policy at the front of the chapter that sets out the key aims and requirements for new development. So as mentioned, proposals need to minimise embodied carbon emissions, and we do include a hierarchy in that policy that sets out a bit more, helps applicants to understand what the priorities are and the most impactful ways to help reduce embodied carbon on developments. We also have a policy requiring proposals to minimise waste through applying circular economy principles, and as part of that, applicants will need to submit a circular economy statement for major developments that demonstrates how the building's been designed to reduce waste. And then finally, achieving net zero operational carbon is required, and that also refers to our operational carbon hierarchy. This essentially aligns with the London Plan's broad strategy. So firstly, to be lean, which in Haringey we are saying means taking a passive design approach. So prioritising building fabric improvements to deliver high levels of energy efficiency. Then be clean, so use low and zero carbon infrastructure to heat, cool and power buildings. So we're really trying to move away from using fossil fuels. Be green is part of that, maximising opportunities for on-site renewable energy to be generated. And then finally be seen, so requiring proposals to measure, monitor and report energy use as they are planned, built out and then in use. So I won't go into this in detail, but this is just to show you that for our embodied carbon and retrofit policy, we have introduced something new, which is some targets on quantities of embodied carbon for different types of development. Those targets have been informed by evidence that was published by LETI, so that's the London Energy Transformation Initiative. I hope I got their name right. They are a very well recognised group of industry experts who have collaborated with all of these sort of are the Royal Institute of British Architects, the Institution of Structural Engineers, ICE, and also with RICS, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, so many different professional bodies who have produced some quite detailed evidence and case studies to help determine what is an appropriate target to be asking for to help proposals reduce their carbon content of buildings, and that's in building materials. And as part of this policy, point D there, in the bottom right-hand corner of the slide, proposals for development on sites with existing buildings must take a retrofit first approach, evidencing that reuse, repair and retrofit design options have been considered from the earliest design stage, and demonstrating that the reuse and retrofit of existing buildings has been prioritised, having regard to the Haringey placemaking framework, relevant site allocations, and the need to make the best use of land. So, and then those policy targets from our evidence study, the Delivering Net Zero evidence study on energy efficiency policies at ZC4. We are also introducing new policy targets on energy efficiency. And apologies, I've just realised this slide is showing the same targets twice. I will make sure that's updated when I upload the slides, but it's also available on our website. But just to note that we have some new policy targets that have been introduced for energy use, and those are in kilowatt hours per square metre. So again, we want to allow some time for questions, so apologies for racing through this, but I thought it might be useful to show the contents. So this is a list of the policies that are included within this chapter. So we've had a look at the strategic policy on achieving a zero carbon balance. We had a quick look at policy ZC2 on embodied carbon and retrofit. I haven't shown you a slide on supporting the circular economy, but happy to answer any questions to help clarify that. And all of this information is available on our website. Policy ZC4, we're introducing some quite progressive energy efficiency targets that are based on our Delivering Net Zero study. And those targets, I should mention, they do go beyond both what's currently in the London Plan and National Planning Policy. So that was a big reason why we collaborated with a large group of London boroughs, and we've been in ongoing conversation with both the GLA, the Mayor's Office, and also with our partner boroughs as part of that study. To make sure that we're all taking that progressive step forward and sharing information and kind of doing that together. Policy ZC5 on low and zero carbon heating infrastructure. As I mentioned, one of the key parts of that policy is we do have a Haringey low carbon heat hierarchy, which sets out a priority for different ways, different approaches to low carbon heat. And so it sort of sets out which options there are and how applicants should prioritize different measures. So those things like using decentralized energy networks, or using secondary heat, or using air source heat pumps. So the full details are in the chapter, and happy to answer any questions on that. And then we have our chapter on renewable energy on-site, off-site, and offsetting. So essentially that policy really tries to prioritize and encourage on-site renewable energy as the best way to help produce a genuinely zero carbon development. And then finally, we have a policy on assuring energy performance, because it's really important that developments target an independently certified standard, and that's to make sure that what's permitted and granted at planning stage is actually then built on site. And so having appropriate certification and aiming for certain performance standards is a key part of achieving that. And so I think, yes, now just a quick recap on the different ways that you can respond. So please email us at newlocalplan@haringey.gov.uk. My goodness, I am going to have to go back and update these slides as there's an E missing from Haringey there. Or alternatively, you can go to our consultation website, and there are mini surveys on those web pages that you can fill in to give us your feedback. We are also hosting a number of in-person drop-in sessions across the borough. We still have those going on for the next couple of weeks, and there are drop-ins at libraries and other locations, so please do check that out. We will have paper surveys on hand at those sessions. And so, yes, this will be a hyperlink when these slides are uploaded to the website, which takes you straight to our community engagement events page. And there you can check out some of the new events that have been added.